The stewardess leaned over the white man in seat 1B and smiled. "Champagne for you, sir." He nodded politely, and she poured the golden liquid into a slim flute, resting it gently on his tray. The bubbles sparkled in the cabin lights. Then she turned ... and walked right past Ava ... No glance, no question, no champagne. Ava looked up, confused. Maybe she just missed her by accident. "Excuse me," Ava said softly, trying to keep her tone calm. "I'll take a glass too, please." The stewardess turned around slowly. Her face was blank, her lips tight. "I'm sorry," she said without emotion. "Champagne is for premium. Guests only." Ava blinked. "I'm in 1A. This is first class." The stewardess gave a short, practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, but your ticket was upgraded. Complimentary. The champagne service is only for full fare." That wasn't true. Ava had paid for her ticket weeks in advance fully. In fact, it was one of the most expensive seats on the flight. Her fingers tightened on the armrest. "I bought my ticket outright. I paid for this seat." The stewardess shrugged, leaned in closer, and said in a lower voice, "Maybe next time. MAAM. Some people just don't fit the first-class profile." She turned and walked away. The words hit Ava like a slap. Not fit the profile. She looked down at herself. Black silk blouse, tailored white trousers, Italian leather shoes. Her hair was pulled into a neat bun. Everything about her screamed polished professional. Everything except her skin. Ava had experienced it before, in whispers and side-eyes, but never so openly. Never in a cabin full of silent passengers who heard it and did nothing. She glanced at the man beside her. He kept his eyes on his newspaper, like he hadn't heard a thing. A lump formed in her throat, but she swallowed it down. She was not going to cry. Not over this. Not here. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. For a moment, her thumb hovered over the screen. She hadn't called this contact in over a year. After their messy divorce, they'd agreed to go no contact unless it was about work or emergencies. But this was both. She scrolled down her contacts and tapped the name, Daniel Cross, CEO. The phone rang once. Twice. Then came the deep, familiar voice. Ava. His voice hadn't changed. Calm, cold, focused, just like she remembered. "I need a favor," she said, her voice tight. "I'm on flight 226 to Paris, and I've just been denied champagne because the flight attendant doesn't think I belong in first class." A long silence followed. "You're in first class now?" he asked. "I bought the ticket myself." "Daniel," she said, her voice sharp, "this isn't about us. I'm not calling for personal help. I'm calling because your company owns this airline." Daniel inhaled, then said, "What's the flight attendant's name?" "I don't know," Ava replied, "but I'll get it." "No need," he said. "Stay calm, don't move. I'll handle it." She hung up, the anger in her chest still burned, but it was controlled now like a fire with direction. 10 minutes later, the flight had just finished boarding when the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for the delay. We are conducting a last-minute crew adjustment. Please remain seated." Murmurs spread through the cabin. The stewardess returned, walking down the aisle with a smug look until 2 uniformed airport officials stepped on board behind her. "Amanda Rowe," one of them asked. The stewardess froze. "Yes, please. Gather your belongings. You're being removed from this flight." "What?" she snapped. "Why? I didn't do anything. This is coming directly from corporate. You'll be briefed at the terminal." Her eyes scanned the cabin, looking for support. No one spoke. Even the man next to Ava pretended to look at the safety card. Then her eyes locked with Ava's. The smirk was gone now, replaced by confusion. Panic. "You," she whispered. "You did this." Ava didn't answer. She simply folded her hands in her lap, her expression calm. The stewardess was escorted off the plane. The moment the door shut, the cabin felt different, like something invisible had shifted. A new attendant came in, flustered and clearly nervous. She checked her notes, glanced at Ava, and quickly made her way over. "Ms. Blake," she asked, "we're so sorry for the delay. May I offer you a glass of champagne?" Ava smiled lightly. "Yes, thank you." The flute was placed gently on her tray, cold, crisp, elegant, but Ava didn't drink it yet. Her eyes were focused on the seating chart in her app 3C. That was the seat she'd seen during boarding. She tapped for passenger info and froze when she saw the name, Isabella Hart, her former assistant. The woman who had once cried at Ava's desk when her mother got sick, and then stole Ava's entire project to present it to the board. That betrayal had cost Ava everything: her job, her title, her credibility. And now, Isabella was heading to the same conference in Paris, the same one where Ava was supposed to sit quietly in the audience while others spoke on her research. Ava raised the champagne glass and took a long, slow sip. She wasn't going to sit in the audience, not anymore. She had something. Isabella didn, single quotes, ti truth, and a plan. But before she could relax, something caught her eye. From across the cabin, just past seat 3C, a man in a navy suit was staring at her. Not watching, staring. He had a tablet in his hands, but he wasn't reading it. His eyes didn't move. They stayed locked on Ava, unblinking. Something about him felt off. She looked away, then looked back. He was still watching. Her fingers tightened around the glass. Ava had made enemies before, but this wasn't just about business anymore. This flight was the beginning of something much bigger. She didn't know yet if it was revenge, redemption, or war. But one thing was clear: she wouldn't leave Paris the same woman who boarded this plane, and neither would Isabella. The grand lobby of the Hotel du Renaissance buzzed with luxury and tension. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. Attendees in designer suits and elegant dresses chatted near check-in, but Ava barely noticed any of it. She stood at the conference registration desk, fingers drumming lightly on the counter. "I'm sorry," said the woman behind the laptop for the third time. "There's no keynote registration under Ava Blake." Ava narrowed her eyes. "That's not possible. I was confirmed as the opening speaker 3 weeks ago." "Check again." "I did," the woman said, clearly nervous now. "You're not on the schedule. Would you like to attend as a guest instead?" No, this wasn't a simple error. This was sabotage. She turned, scanning the crowd, and then she saw her. Isabella Hart, dressed in a blood-red pantsuit, posing for a photo with a small group of tech journalists. On her chest hung a shiny conference badge. Keynote speaker. Ava's stomach twisted, but she forced herself to breathe. Not here. Not now. She stepped away from the desk and walked to a quieter corner of the lobby. Her hands were shaking as she unzipped her laptop bag. Inside was her folder, one she'd packed herself the night before. It had her speech draft, presentation outline, charts, and all supporting documents. But when she opened it, the papers were wrong. Pages of internal memos she'd never seen before. Financial records, even printed emails, some marked confidential, and all of them pointed to her. Fraud. Embezzlement. Fake. Billing accounts. Her heart dropped. These weren't just random papers. Someone had planted them. Ava shoved the folder back into her bag and looked around. Eyes were watching her. She didn't know whose, but she could feel it. She moved quickly toward the elevator. As the doors slid shut behind her, she caught another glimpse of that same man from the plain dark suit. No smile. He wasn't just watching now. He was following. Inside her hotel room, Ava locked the door and leaned against it. Her breaths came fast, shallow. This wasn't just about stolen credit. This was a setup. She sat down at the desk and opened her laptop. Her inbox was flooded with emails from clients, PR reps, and legal departments asking for clarification about your alleged involvement in billing misconduct. It had already begun, but her reputation wasn't just at risk, it was being destroyed in real time. There was only one person who had access to her folders, her travel info, and her past presentation files. Isabella, and the only one who would benefit from making Ava look like a fraud was the woman now posing with industry leaders just floors below her. Ava clenched her jaw. No tears, no fear, not anymore. She reached for her phone and dialed Daniel Cross. The voice answered. "I need you to pull the original speaker schedule for the conference," she said without greeting. Pause. Double quotes Ava. "What's going on?" "Someone erased my name and replaced it with Isabella's, and now someone's planted fake documents in my bag to make me look like a criminal. I don't know how far this goes, but I need you to find out who's behind it." Daniel sighed. "You're not even supposed to be at this conference." "I built this conference, Daniel. You know it. They used my research, my data, my contacts. I was supposed to be the face of this launch." He went quiet, then said, "Give me an hour." 1 hour later, Ava was pacing her suite when her phone buzzed again. Daniel's voice was more urgent. "Now, I traced the system logs. Someone used your email login last night from a Paris IP address. Around midnight. I didn't log in. I was asleep. I know. I also checked hotel security. The card reader shows your room was entered. Around that time, Ava froze, so they had a copy of my room key. Or someone inside helped them. She looked at the door, the lock, the deadbolt. She hadn't turned. Her skin prickled. Daniel, what do I do? He hesitated. I'll send someone to watch your door, and we'll get our legal team to dig into Isabella's communications with the board. For now, stay quiet. Don't draw attention. But Ava was already shaking her head. No, I'm done being quiet. She hung up and turned to her laptop. There was one thing she still had. Evidence. Not the printed kind, but real proof. The files she kept on her encrypted drive at home. Recordings, original drafts, screenshots, voice notes, even a recorded call from 6 months ago, where Isabella asked her to help clean up a botched report. Ava had refused, and now, here they were. She opened her backup server and began to download everything. But even as she worked, her mind flashed back to that man in the navy suit. Who was he? He wasn't press, he wasn't a tech exec, and he wasn't security. Then something strange happened. Her screen blinked just once. Then a black box appeared on the screen. You should have stayed quiet. Her hands froze on the keyboard. What was this? The message vanished a second later. The screen returned to normal. Had she imagined it? Or was someone already inside her system? She slammed the laptop shut. Her breathing was shallow now. The walls of the room felt smaller. This was bigger than Isabella. Bigger than corporate politics or stolen files. This was calculated, professional. Someone didn't just want her humiliated. They wanted her erased. That evening, the keynote began in the hotel ballroom. Ava stood in the back, dressed in black, blending into the shadows. On stage, Isabella smiled and waved, accepting applause like she was born for it. She launched into her speech, quoting studies and statistics Ava's studies. Her voice was confident. Her eyes sparkled with success. But Ava didn't hear a word. Her gaze had locked on the man from the plane. He stood near the stage exit, speaking into a small earpiece. Calm, still, professional. Ava slipped out of the ballroom and took the side hallway to the service corridor. She moved quickly, unnoticed, until she reached the rear of the stage area. From behind the curtains, she could see Isabella flipping through slides. Just then, a voice came through a nearby radio. She's still in the building. Do not approach until Hart finishes the speech. Ava's blood turned cold. They were watching her, waiting not just for a public takedown. They wanted her gone quietly. She looked around and saw an open staff badge hanging on a hook nearby. Without thinking, she grabbed it, clipped it to her jacket, and slipped through the backstage door. She walked straight past a tech assistant, nodded at a security guard, and vanished into the loading bay behind the ballroom. Once outside, she kept walking, past the hotel, down the alley. Only when she was a block away did she finally stop to breathe. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a private number. She picked up. Hello. A distorted voice replied, if you speak again, we release the files. All of them, including the ones from Brazil. Ava's breath caught in her throat. Brazil. Brazil. The one secret she never thought would resurface. The one thing Daniel didn't even know. She whispered, who are you? But the call had already ended. She stood there, on the sidewalk, heart racing. It was clear now. This wasn't about champagne, or pride, or even revenge. It was war, and Ava had just stepped onto the battlefield. But what her enemies didn't know was that the woman they tried to bury had already died once, and this version was ready to burn everything down. Rain slicked the streets of Paris as Ava walked deeper into the city, hoodie pulled over her head, hair clinging to her face. Her heels had been traded for flat shoes she bought from a late-night vendor, and her elegant conference outfit was now hidden under a cheap thrifted jacket. She didn't care about style anymore. She just needed to vanish for now. That phone call had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Brazil. It wasn't a word. It was a wound. One she thought had healed years ago. But someone had dug it up, and now they were threatening to use it. As Ava ducked into the back entrance of a closed cafe and settled into a dark corner, she pulled out an old phone, one she hadn't used in over 5 years. It didn't have apps, no GPS, no syncing, just one thing, a name. Milo Paris. She hesitated, then pressed call. 1 ring. 2. Click. Then silence. Ava whispered, I need your help. Another pause, then the voice on the other end said, "Took you long enough." An hour later, Ava stood outside an unmarked door in a graffiti alley. It opened before she knocked. Milo hadn't changed much. Shaggy hair, coffee-stained hoodie, hands that fidgeted even when he smiled. "You still talk like a spy," he said, pulling her inside. "But I've missed this chaos. I didn't come for jokes." He led her down into the basement, where a wall of monitors blinked. The room was dim, cluttered with cables, servers, and open pizza boxes. Milo sat down and started typing. "So," he said, "they threatened you with Brazil." Ava nodded. "They think I stole something down there. They have files. Or they're pretending to. Tell me what really happened." She hesitated, then sat. 3 years ago, I was working with a Brazilian biotech company. They were developing a drug for rare blood disorders, one with massive profit potential. I found out they were falsifying trial data, skipping steps, risking lives. So you exposed them. I tried, but before I could go public, someone hacked my system, leaked an altered version of my report, and made it look like I was the one faking data. Milo stared at her. "That's why you disappeared." "I took the fall to protect a child patient whose life depended on that drug. If the company went under too fast, she wouldn't get the treatment in time. And no one ever knew the truth. Only one other person had the real documents. Someone I trusted, back then. Let me guess." Milo's fingers hovered over the keys. "Her name rhymes with Missabella Smart." Ava gave a bitter smile. "Bingo." Milo's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Okay, let's start with the files they planted in your hotel room. I'll trace where they were edited." After a few minutes, he frowned. "They weren't edited on your laptop. They were created on another machine and uploaded remotely to your synced folder." "Synced folder?" Ava asked. "I don't use Cloud Sync." "You don't," he said, "but someone turned it on from a spoofed IP. From this hotel." He turned the screen. "Looks like your room was cloned. Every keystroke mirrored. So everything I typed ... they saw. Yeah, and not just you." He clicked through more logs. "Whoever's behind this is watching dozens of people, including Isabella." That made Ava pause. "Isabella's being watched too." "Yep, and Daniel." Ava felt a chill move through her. "So this isn't just her. She's a pawn." Milo nodded. "She thought she was stealing your career. But someone's using her to get to something bigger." He zoomed in on a data node, glowing red. "There it is. The server that holds the Brazil files. But it's not corporate. It's personal. Belongs to a shell company registered too." He stopped. "What?" Ava asked. But Milo turned the screen. Slowly, Ava's breath caught in her throat. Daniel crossed her ex-husband, the man who took her call when the champagne incident happened, the man who'd promised to help her. "He said he was trying to protect me," she whispered. Milo looked at her. "Maybe he was, at first, but this server is active, updated recently, which means he's still involved." Ava stared at the screen, her hands clenched. "He always hated that I made more noise than he did in boardrooms, that I had a louder name. After the divorce, he told me he wanted to balance the scales. Maybe this is what he meant." Milo raised an eyebrow. "So, what now? You want revenge?" Ava didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Can you break into that server?" He cracked his knuckles. "You remember who you're talking to?" It took 3 hours. By the time Milo cracked the encryption, the Paris sun had begun to rise. Inside the server were dozens of folders, documents, recordings, reports. But one folder stood out. The rewrite plan. Ava clicked it open. Emails between Daniel and a private intelligence group. Payment receipts. A strategy proposal titled Project Eclipse. Erasing Ava Blake. It wasn't just professional, it was personal. They had mapped out every step, discrediting her Brazil report, replacing her at the Paris conference, planting files in her briefcase, sending her name to regulators for investigation, even leaking old voicemails from her therapy sessions, framing her as unstable. Ava read line after line, her hands trembling, and at the bottom of the page, one more name appeared. Isabella Hart, active asset, compensated. She wasn't just a pawn, she was paid to play. "Download everything," Ava said quietly. "Back it up, twice." Milo did. When he was done, he turned to her. "What's your plan?" "I'm going to the conference gala tonight," she said, voice steady. "They'll all be there. Isabella, Daniel, the journalists, the board, and I'm going to show them who I really am." Milo smirked. "You're crazy." Maybe, Ava said, standing up, but I'm not a ghost, not anymore. That night, the ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne flutes. Ava entered through the kitchen. She wore a simple black dress, no makeup, no heels, just the truth on a flash drive in her clutch. She waited until Isabella took the stage again for a closing toast. Behind the curtain, Milo slipped her the mic feed, and Ava stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said, walking onto the stage as gasps rippled through the room. Isabella froze. Ava took the microphone. "I won't take long. I just want to thank my former assistant for holding this stage for me, but I'm ready to take it back now." A low murmur ran through the crowd. Isabella forced a smile. Security. Ava held up the flash drive. "This contains a full report of a private operation to erase my name, reputation, and career. It includes forged documents, planted evidence, and hacked communications." The murmurs turned into sharp whispers. Ava turned to the crowd. "I was supposed to disappear, to be remembered as the fraud, the unstable one, the overpromoted, underqualified black woman who got too far." She looked at Isabella. "But I kept receipts, all of them." And with that, she handed the drive to a tech assistant with a trembling hand. The projector behind her lit up. Emails, transactions, photos, audio files. The ballroom went silent. Isabella's face went pale. Somewhere near the exit, Daniel turned and quietly walked out, but not before Milo snapped his photo, sending it to every reporter in the room. Ava stood in the center of the stage, unshaken. They had tried to bury her, but they didn't know she was a seed, and tonight, she bloomed off for 24 hours. Ava Blake's name was everywhere. #Justice for Ava trended across platforms. Clips of her confronting Isabella on stage racked up millions of views. Major outlets praised her courage and called her the symbol of professional resilience. But Ava didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel safe, because she knew this wasn't over, and she was right. It began with an email. Subject line: "You don't know the whole story." No sender, no signature, just a single link. Milo checked it first, his fingers flying across his keyboard in the cafe basement they'd claimed as their temporary war room. "This wasn't sent through a normal server," he said. "It's bouncing through 7 countries. Can we trust it?" Ava asked, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Milo hesitated, then nodded. "It's encrypted, but the structure matches files from Daniel's secret server." He clicked the link. The file opened. A video. Ava leaned in, her heart pounding. On the screen, a hotel room in Brazil. Blurry footage from a ceiling corner camera. Ava herself entered the room, tired, drenched from rain. She dropped her bag and sat at the desk. Another figure entered seconds later. A woman, slender, nervous, holding a flash drive. Ava frowned. "I don't remember this," she whispered. The woman walked over and handed her something. Ava accepted it without looking. She was rubbing her forehead, clearly exhausted. Then came the audio. "You're sure this will stay between us?" the woman said. "Absolutely," Ava's voice replied. "If anyone finds out I gave this to you, they'll kill me. I'll protect you, I promise." The screen froze. Milo and played that moment again. Ava stared at it, stunned. "I don't remember this," she repeated. "I swear, I don't." "That woman," Milo said. "She looks familiar." He pulled up facial recognition software and ran the video frame. After several seconds, a match appeared. Mara Cruz, former clinical trial researcher, whistleblower, disappeared 2 weeks after Ava left Brazil. Declared dead. Ava's chest tightened. "No, I thought she fled the country." Milo shook his head. "She tried, but 2 days after this meeting, her body was found in a river." Ava stared at the paused frame. "You think I was framed for her death?" "No," Milo said slowly. "I think someone kept this video as insurance, as blackmail, to make you think you were involved if the truth ever came out. But I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't need to. Just being in the same room at the wrong time was enough, especially with her handing you that drive." Ava closed her eyes. "That's why they kept referencing Brazil. Not because of the data, but because of Mara. And now someone wants you to remember it, which means they're not done with me," she said. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You still have what she gave you, even if you don't remember." Ava looked at Milo. "That flash drive. It must be with my old archives. From years ago." "Then it's time to go home," 3 days later, Ava stood in her New York apartment for the first time in months. Dust clung to the windows, light leaked in through the blinds, like memories she wasn't ready to face. She moved toward the storage cabinet in her study. Box after box, labeled, dated, archived. Finally she found it. A plain flash drive, buried in a file from the Brazil project. No label, no markings. She didn't even remember putting it there. Milo ran a scan before plugging it in. It's clean but encrypted. Can you open it? He grinned. You insult me. After several minutes, the drive unlocked. Inside were 2 files. Project_Sangri_documentation. Bedavid, _Mara, _final.mp4000. Opened the PDF first. Ava read silently, her eyes widening with every page. The drug she had once helped, research originally pitched as a treatment for rare blood disorders, wasn't what it seemed. It was repurposed military-grade gene editing technology, originally developed for combat performance enhancement. The trial subjects in Brazil weren't random. They were test cases, poor families, desperate for medical aid, unknowingly enrolled in an experiment not approved by any ethical board, and Mara had gathered it all. Data, photos, emails, lab results. She had trusted Ava with it right before she died. Ava sat back, her hands trembling. I thought I was trying to save lives, she whispered, but I was being used. Milo opened the second file. It was Mara's final video. If you're seeing this, Ava, I didn't make it, and it's not your fault. I saw what they were doing. I collected what I could. I didn't know who to trust, but I trusted you. Please, do what I couldn't. Expose them. Save the others, before they make this global. The screen went black. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Ava stood. She walked to the window, staring out at the city she'd once dominated. Her empire of confidence. Her fortress. Now, she saw it differently. She whispered, this was never about my reputation. It was about hiding this, about making sure Mara's voice stayed buried. She turned to Milo. We need to go public. All of it. You sure? He asked. Absolutely. No more hiding. Not for me. Not for her. The next day, Ava stood before a panel of global health investigators, journalists, and human rights lawyers. She played the videos. Shared the files. Named names. Project Sangri became headline news. In under an hour. By evening, multiple biotech firms had suspended trials. Governments issued emergency investigations. A global spotlight turned to the shadows where Ava had once stood alone. Isabella resigned from the board. Daniel went silent. But Ava stood taller than ever. That night, she received a call. It was Daniel. She answered but didn't speak. I never meant for it to go this far, he said, his voice shaking. You lied to me, she replied calmly. You tried to erase me, and for what? To protect a project that murdered people. I was protecting our legacy. No, she said. You were protecting your ego. You saw my power as a threat instead of a partnership. That's why you left me. That's why you sold me out. Silence. Then he said softly, they'll come for you now. They already did, and I'm still standing. She ended the call. No more fear, no more silence. She opened her laptop and began to write. Not another corporate report, a testimony, a story, her story, and Mara's, and all the others who would never get to speak for themselves. The car was supposed to be secure. Ava had triple-checked everything, routes, credentials, even the driver's name. After what she'd exposed, there was no way she would take chances. Not after Brazil, not after the conference, and not after the files went public. The United Nations had invited her to speak in Geneva, a global summit. Her testimony would help shape new international ethics, laws for pharmaceutical trials. She had made it through the storm. Or so she thought. The black SUV glided smoothly down the highway. The driver was silent, professional, sunglasses, no small talk, just how Ava preferred it. She sat in the back, reviewing her speech one last time. Every word mattered. Mara's name was in the first line. Her story would be told, on the biggest stage possible. The world would hear the truth. She glanced out the window at the green Swiss countryside and smiled faintly. Then her phone buzzed. Milo. She answered immediately. You need to get out of the car, he said sharply. Right now. Ava's heart jumped. What, that driver? He's not who you booked. The real driver is still at the hotel. Someone switched the vehicle at the last minute. I'm tracking it now. Ava froze. She looked at the rearview mirror. The driver was staring back at her, expressionless. The smile vanished from her face. He pressed a button on the dashboard. The doors locked with a metallic click. Where are we going? She asked. Her voice suddenly dry. He didn't answer. Ava clutched her bag tighter. Inside was her backup phone, her hard drive, and a slim folding knife Milo had insisted she carry just in case. She quietly reached for it. The SUV turned off the main road and headed down a narrow, wooded path. Stop the car, Ava said. Still the driver said nothing. She pressed the blade release. The click echoed like thunder in her chest. Stop the car, she repeated. He did. Suddenly, abruptly, Ava's body lurched forward, but she stayed upright. Then the driver stepped out and walked around to her door. Ava slid the blade into her sleeve, took a deep breath, and unlocked her door from the inside. Just as he reached for it, he pulled it open and she kicked hard, right into his chest. He stumbled back just long enough for her to bolt out and run. She didn't look behind her. She just ran through the trees, down the gravel, her heels digging into the dirt, branches whipping her arms. She ran until her lungs burned and her vision blurred. Then she saw a house, small, wooden, old. She banged on the door with everything she had. No answer. She turned the knob. It opened. Inside, it was dark, dusty, empty. She slammed the door and locked it. Then she collapsed against the wall, heart pounding like war drums in her chest. Her phone was still in her hand. She dialed Milo. I escaped, she gasped. I'm in some old house side. Don't know where. I'm tracking your GPS. Stay put. I'm calling Swiss police now. Do not open the door unless it's them. She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. And that's when she heard it. Footsteps. Not from outside, from upstairs. Ava's breath caught in her throat. She moved slowly, step by step, toward the staircase. She looked up at first. There was nothing, just silence. Then, a shadow moved, and then, a voice. I knew you'd come back, Ava. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. It couldn't be. It was impossible. She backed up slowly, her heart hammering. Then the figure stepped into the light. Mara Cruz, alive. For a long moment, Ava couldn't breathe. Mara stood at the top of the stairs, pale but alive. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but it was her, no doubt. Mara, you're dead. I saw the reports, the autopsy photos, the funeral notice. They staged it, Mara said quietly, coming down the stairs. They needed me gone, dead, erased. Ava's back hit the wall. She didn't move. She couldn't. Mara looked exhausted. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hands shaking. I had no choice, she said. After I gave you the drive, I was marked. They chased me across 2 continents. Daniel hired mercenaries, not just lawyers, mercenaries. Ava stared at her. Why now? Why show yourself now? Because I saw your speech. I saw you stand up for me. You were the only one who didn't run. Ava's voice cracked. I thought, I failed you. You didn't. You gave me time. That's why I survived. Ava lowered the blade in her sleeve and stepped forward. She reached out and hugged her. They stood there for several seconds. 2 women who had both been hunted, framed, betrayed. Mara pulled back. But Ava, you don't understand. They're not just trying to bury the project anymore. What do you mean? They're building a new one, bigger, global, and they're using the UN as cover. Ava's stomach dropped. That's why they didn't want me at the summit, she whispered. Mara nodded. They needed you gone before you said a word. Ava's eyes widened. The speech, the files. If I don't show up, they rewrite the story again. Suddenly, headlights lit up the windows. A car had pulled up. Mara ran to the curtain and peeked out. It's not the police. Ava grabbed her phone. Milo, where are the cops? 10 minutes away, he said. Just hold on. But they didn't have 10 minutes. 3 men stepped out of the car. Not police, not security. Men in black jackets. Military stance. Comes in their ears. Ava and Mara looked at each other. Back door, Mara whispered. They slipped out and ran. Again, this time together. The forest was thicker here, darker, but they kept going. Through brambles and thorns, over roots and rocks. Finally, they reached a road. A single car approached a police vehicle. Mara raised her hands. The car stopped. The officer stepped out. Ava showed her ID. shaking. UN speaker, Ava Blake, we're being chased. He nodded. Get in. As they pulled away, Ava looked back one last time. The men in black had reached the cabin. They were too late. This time, Ava had survived again. And this time, so had Mara. An hour later, at the Geneva summit, the room fell silent as Ava stepped onto the stage. Her dress was torn, her hair windblown, dirt still on her shoes, but her voice, clear, strong, steady. I stand before you not as a victim, she said, but as a survivor. Not just of a failed system, but of a war no one was supposed to see. She turned and gestured toward the side of the stage. Mara walked out, alive. The crowd gasped. For years, we were silenced, threatened, erased. Ava continued, but not anymore. The next 20 minutes shook the world. Not just the files, not just the science, but the names of leaders, corporations, diplomats, even members inside the summit. No one was untouchable anymore. That night, Ava and Mara sat on a hotel balcony overlooking Lake Geneva. The stars shimmered. So did the reflection in the water. Thank you, Mara whispered. Ava nodded slowly. We're not done, but at least now, the world is listening. And somewhere, far away, a man closed his laptop as the broadcast ended. He didn't speak. He just muttered. She made it out again. And then he smiled, cold, calculated, because the final play hadn't yet begun. The email came at 3:17 a.m., encrypted, untraceable. Subject: the board has voted. The plan moves forward with or without you. Ava stared at it, unmoving. She was in her Geneva hotel suite, the summit still echoing in headlines around the world. Her testimony with Mara had gone viral. International investigations had already begun. Boardrooms were panicking, but this email changed everything, because it meant the enemy hadn't lost. They were regrouping, and they had more power than she thought. Ava forwarded the message to Milo, then called him. He answered instantly. I just saw it. Who's the board? I thought it was Daniel and the biotech execs, Milo said. But this email didn't come from any of their known servers. It came from inside the UN network. Ava felt her chest tighten. You think it's someone here? Not someone, he said. A whole council. Think of it like a shadow task force, connected to pharmaceutical lobbies, military R&D, global contracts. They've been steering the narrative since Brazil. They're the reason Mara had to fake her death, and now they're trying to finish the plan. Without me. Yes, but here's the kicker, Milo continued. That server where this message came from, it was accessed yesterday by someone attending your speech. Ava's heart sank. Who? She asked. I cross-checked badge scans. There's only one match. He paused, then said the name, Ambassador Elaine Merrow. Ava blinked. Elaine. She's the chair of the Ethics Council. She invited me here. She introduced me on stage. Milo said nothing. She sat beside me when I talked about Mara's case. Ava whispered. She held my hand. She's the final piece, Milo said. She wasn't supporting you. She was watching you, measuring the risk. Ava sat back, stunned. All this time, she'd thought Elaine was her ally, a mentor, a moral compass, but it had all been part of the illusion. And now, the truth cut sharper than any betrayal before. I need to see her, Ava said. Be careful, Milo warned. If she senses you're onto her, she might disappear. She won't, Ava replied quietly, because she still thinks I trust her. Later that morning, Ava entered the UN atrium with calm purpose. Journalists tried to stop her for questions, but she walked straight past them. Her eyes were fixed. Elaine was in a glass meeting room on the second floor, talking with two assistants. She looked radiant, composed, but Ava saw through it now. She approached. Elaine looked up and smiled. Ava, I was just saying how proud we all are of. Can we speak privately? Ava asked, her voice cold but polite. Elaine blinked. Of course. They stepped into an empty side room. A glass wall separated them from the bustling corridor, but inside it was silent. Elaine smiled gently. I know this must all feel overwhelming, but you've done something powerful, important. You should be proud. Ava stared at her, then reached into her coat and pulled out a printed email. The email. She slid it across the table. Elaine glanced at it and froze. I know you sent this, Ava said calmly. I also know you accessed the Sangri files before they were deleted from the system. And I know you were the one who ordered Mara to be handled in Brazil. Elaine's jaw tightened, but only for a moment. Then she leaned back and smiled. Softly. You're smarter than they gave you credit for. I'm not interested in flattery, Ava said. I want the truth. Elaine nodded. Very well. She stood up, walked to the window, and spoke without turning around. Do you know how hard it is to keep the world spinning, Ava? Do you understand the weight of managing diseases, populations, resources? People like us, we carry that burden. Quietly. You think whistleblowing is brave? Try balancing 10 nations on the brink of collapse. So your solution was human experimentation? Ava asked, voice rising. Silencing people, murdering scientists, lying to the world. Elaine turned to her, eyes sharp now, cold. My solution was control. Your story, mirage, story it, threatens decades of structure. Do you think the world is ready to hear they've been lab rats for profit? Ava stepped forward. They deserve the truth. Elaine leaned in. And what if the truth destroys peace? What if your crusade crashes economies, fuels riots, collapses fragile governments? Ava didn't blink. Then let it burn. Because truth always grows back stronger. Elaine studied her. You won't stop, will you? No, Ava said. I buried my voice once. I won't bury it again. Elaine sighed and turned away. Then I can't protect you anymore. I never asked for your protection. Elaine walked out without another word. Ava stood there for a moment, heart pounding. She'd just declared war on one of the most powerful women in the world. But it didn't scare her. It thrilled her, because now there were no masks left. That night, Ava received a private courier at her hotel. Inside, the envelope was a single flash drive. No note, no return address. Milo ran it through a firewall before opening it. One file. Final protocol. PDF. It detailed the next phase of Project Sangri. Global expansion into refugee populations, genetic mapping through disguised aid programs, emergency trials. During crisis floods, wars, famines, it was Elaine's master plan. And now, Ava had it. She looked at Milo. Do we go public again? He hesitated. We can, but it's not just about truth now. It's about who controls the narrative. You've become more than a whistleblower. You're a threat to their design. Ava nodded. Then we designed something louder. The next morning, Ava gave her final speech at the summit, but this time, she didn't stand behind a podium. She stood among the people, with Mara beside her. And she streamed it live. To the public. Unfiltered. She didn't speak just to diplomats. She spoke to mothers, to fathers, to patients, to scientists, to survivors. She named names. She showed documents. She exposed Elaine, and she ended with this. If truth is dangerous, it's only because we've built a world that fears it. But we don't need to fear anymore, because we're not alone. We are many, and we are watching now. The crowd stood and clapped. Some wept. Elaine left Geneva. That afternoon she resigned quietly. 2 weeks later. 1 month later, Ava stood on a balcony in Lisbon, Portugal, overlooking the Atlantic. Mara was staying nearby, under full protection. Milo had taken a job with a global watchdog group. Ava herself had signed with the UN Reform Committee on her terms. Her story had changed things. Laws were being rewritten, funding was being audited, and most importantly, no one could run secret trials anymore. She thought about that first flight, the champagne, the humiliation, and how it led to everything. She picked up her journal and wrote, "They tried to silence me with a drink, then erase me with a file. But it only taught me one thing. You don't need power to change the world. You only need the truth, and the courage to carry it." She closed the book, then smiled. She was no longer afraid. She was free.